Greetings, welcome to Engine Software's first webinar. I'm your host, Derek Waterman. I've been with Engine for 7 years. I recognize some of the names and I don't recognize others, so I think we've got a good mix of experience or at least people that that I've connected with. Also online is Janelle. She's on the chat. She's the one that's posted there on the chat. She'll be helping collecting, sorting, and grouping your questions and funneling them to me towards the end. She's been with Engine double my time, probably 15 plus years. We're going to try this new medium for training and see how it works. We're hoping to utilize it more and more in the future. We're going to cover more and more topics. It's not going to be just the basic topics like this. We'll get into more advanced topics, but we're using this as a test bed to see how this works for us and how we can implement it in our current world environment. We're going to be going over the home screen in Oasis, and if there's time at the end, I'll also go over the calendar function. There are some areas that will cross over into other planned areas, and I'll briefly touch on them, but I'll save the details for those for the respective webinars. We're going to save the last 15 minutes to cover any questions. If we end up not being able to get to all of them, then we'll promise you we'll get you an answer either directly as a message to you, or we'll answer them in group on a link to the post that's going to post this video. And I guess it should let you know that this video is recorded. If you have something more of a private nature that's maybe your agency specific type question that you don't want to put on the public forum, then just PM Janelle or myself directly, and then we will answer you offline separate from this. And I already see Jim, yes, we will have a copy of the training available online, video, and any questions that we're not able to answer on the video. Again, feel free to type your questions in the group chat or private message Janelle. You can also raise your hand with the Zoom tool and Janelle can get a hold of you. We're doing that mainly just to help keep it focused so we can get through the entire planned training and save time at the end for questions. So I'm going to jump right into it. Like I said earlier, the home screen is where we're going to focus on first, and then maybe the calendar. I'm going to assume that everybody can get into Oasis. If you're not able to get into Oasis, if it's your first time using it or anything like that, you can contact our support via email or phone number, and we email or phone, and we will let you know or get you the answers to that. Our number is 501-843-6750. All right, for the home screen, when you first get into Oasis, it jumps into the home screen. I've set up some transactions that will, just for the purposes of this training, so they populate the various areas on your screen. You're going to see something different though, depending on your settings and the data in your database. The first area I want to cover is preferences, because sometimes you might get into Oasis, depending on your view or your monitor, you may or may not be able to see things very well because it might be zooming them very small or large. So your first thing you'll want to do is go to File up at the top and then Preferences. If you go to the Display tab, this allows you to adjust your font on your Oasis. The first area is the system font size, and that's for the overall fonts for the menus, these side functions and main areas. It is not a font size like you think in Word, where it's a 12-pinch font. It is basically using a default font for Java, and you're adjusting it up and down based on your needs. So what I recommend is maybe 5, just at 5 if your monitor's displaying Oasis real small, bring it up 5, restart Oasis and see how it looks, and then adjust small amounts from there. If you just adjust it by 1, you may not even notice the difference. So give yourself a good change, restart Oasis, see how it looks, and then adjust. You can, you can go negative on the home screen font size. I was going to say it there, but it's on the home screen font size. You can go smaller if the reverse is true, where things are just too big. And the home screen font size covers the items that are here on the home screen, how big it displays. Again, it's not a font like in Word where you are selecting a set pitch. It's using a default Java setting and then just subtracting from it or adding to it as necessary. Overall look and feel, we recommend don't touch this. There are a few cases where support may ask you to change it, but this is utilizing a Java feature that changes the overall look and feel of Java applications. And we find that Metal works the best, but there could be situations where support asks you to change that to something else. Tables and listings, anywhere you see an Excel spreadsheet type display where you got columns and rows, you'll be able to change the colors for those. For read-only fields that you can't edit, it's going to alternate between these two colors, this darker gray and this lighter gray. You can change them by clicking the 3 ellipses and either choosing a color straight from a swatch or going through the variety of methods to set a specific color depending on what you need, and changing values if you have an exact color that you want. The reset button down here just changes it back to default. Again, this will alternate between these two colors for read-only rows. For editable rows that have items that you can edit, it'll alternate between these two colors. What I mentioned earlier about this not being tied to a specific font, inside an Excel spreadsheet style listing or table, you can actually set a specific font. You can bold, italics, change the font, and set a specific font size, just like you would in Word or other word processing documents. You can set that. Reset sets everything back to default. Disregard the show for it's going to be going away. That feature is now turned on. I'll go over this part of the tab as we go over each specific section. So in Oasis, when you first come in, and assuming you got the font size set up the way you want it, you'll see that you have the menus up at the top, which allows you to go straight to creating a new reminder, event, project, or order, either commissioned or resell. Those buttons are repeated here if you just want to go straight and use the buttons. Email preferences is where you can set up your email to where Oasis can send the various transactions or just a regular email from Oasis through your email program. And that way you don't have to create a message, drag and drop it to your desktop, and then open up your email program and do it. You can connect it direct. Keep in mind that you'll probably need your IT personnel to help you with it unless you already know it. Depending on what connectivity you have to your email program, you would select the kind of connectivity and then input these settings for your, not for Oasis, but for your email program to allow it to connect to it. You have this optional, these two optional settings where you can auto courtesy copy an email address or auto blind courtesy copy an email address. And so if you put one in there, it will attach those appropriately. The use debug logging, you won't need to use unless support asks you to turn it on. It allows us to troubleshoot some email specific items. And of course, the email address is the email address that you want it to display, even if it's different than the one you use to connect to your email program. Signature allows you to set up a default signature block to append to every email. It is text only. There's no colors or pictures that you can add to it. So if you're okay with a text only signature block, you can put that on there, and then at the bottom of every one of your emails from Oasis, it will place that information. If you're connecting it for the first time, you can use the send test, and what that does is it uses the settings that you've entered and sends Oasis an email, and then we can respond to you so you kind of know it's full circle, it's working. If it's not able to connect, you'll be able to immediately get the error so you can start to troubleshoot where it is. And obviously save and cancel are self-explanatory. Refresh, because this screen is a dynamic screen where things can change, it's kind of locked down so it doesn't constantly query the database to keep up to date with all the changes, because if everybody was sitting on the home screen, it would really slow down the database as all the all the individual users are querying it to try to keep this page up to date. So you have to periodically refresh it if you want to know your content on the page is good. When you first open it up, or anytime you go somewhere else and back to home screen, it automatically refreshes. When you select any of these tabs to go between the various pages, it refreshes. If you click F5, you'll see the F5 right there, it will refresh. Or if you select the refresh setting here in the menu, it will refresh. The company calendar, I'll go over it more when we get to the calendar section, but if you have your calendar set up, you can use it to quickly open up and see what's on your company calendar. I've got a couple entries on here to include the entry for today. Office phone numbers. If everybody in your office has input their contact information for their user account, you can use this to quickly print an office phone number listing, which it worked. There we go. Display error. When I scrolled, it showed up. It'll list all the users in the account and their position, and then any contact information you entered. I've only got 2 users in this database just for the purposes of this training. Print will print this screen exactly how it looks. I got a sample print. It'll just do its best to attempt to put on a single sheet of paper what is on your screen. So if you ever have some information in it that you need to run into a meeting, you can click print and take it right in there. Change password. If you need to change it for security reasons, or the first time you log in, your admin gave you a default password and then you need to create your own, that's where you'll input it in. You'll put in the old one and then the new one. You don't have to enter the new one twice. Sometimes people put the new one and the new one. It'll give you an error and it'll be obvious. So you're putting the current and the new one in there. You have reports that you can run. These 2 reports are default reports on this page. They'll be gone. We'll go over those in another webinar. But you also have a My Reports section that if you have any saved reports that you choose to place on your home screen, they will show there as a quick way to get to those reports that are saved. The help is an area that we recommend you get familiar with for a couple of items. The first one is the front window on any OASIS screen. If you click that, or you click this over here on the right side, the question mark, it'll take you to the user guide page that's applicable to that area. If it can't, if there's nothing that's obvious applicable, it'll at least take you to the user guide main page. The other one that we want to bring up is Open Ticket. You can click Help Open Ticket on anywhere in OASIS, and you can now enter a subject, email, phone number, and then a description of what your question or problem is, and hit OK, and it will open a ticket. You'll get a pop-up that says this ticket was open, and it'll give you the number. If you're in a transaction, like say there's an order and you're having a problem with that specific order, you can check this to include that transaction, and it will attach it to it. Keep in mind that sometimes a transaction could be big, and that could slow down the sending of it or possibly time out. You can uncheck include attachments if in the case where you are including a transaction and there's a lot of attachments, then you can uncheck that to not send those attachments. And then occasionally OASIS will have you check the include OASIS log file or the HSR log as needed. They'll ask you to open a ticket, and that includes a little bit more information that may help you out. The other one was, here we go, About. We're going to, this is a place that we'll have you go to a lot when you're on a call with us, because we're looking for this number right here, which is the current release that you're on. So anytime we ask you where your current release is, that's what we're looking for, is that right there. The other good thing about the Help About is that it will take you to our main website as well as our user guides, and it provides the phone number and email if you ever need it. The last section I'll just cover briefly is that there's support information here. If OASIS support asks you to go to this page, and copying the information that's on here, sending it to us. It just provides some more background settings and things that we can use to evaluate. So you won't necessarily have to go there unless you're an IT person or we're talking you through solving a situation. The rest of the items are, I'm not going to spend the time to go over. That's up here in the menu. I would like to highlight here at the top of your OASIS screen, it lists some connection settings to your OASIS. Right now I'm on the home module. I'm logged in as Derek W, and then it lists the DB ID. That's a unique ID, so we may ask you for that information. The other thing it can show you is, I got a little, it's getting blocked by a pop-up right now on my top of my screen. I don't know if you can see it. It will show you the K, S, P, and U. K is kind, server, port, username, and password. Obviously, we won't list the password, but it lists that information in case you need to connect to the database and it's the first time you need to connect. If you can see somebody else's screen, you'll be able to look up at the top there to see what you need to connect. Okay, we'll start with the welcome screen. The welcome screen is just a generic screen that will give you a variety of things that you have set on your OASIS. I have entered in those items to kind of show you what the maximum is, but you may or may not see all these depending on if those settings are turned on or off. The first one is reminders. I created 2 reminders for myself. Actually, I created 4, now that I see it, and it's alternating between the color codes. And the reminders that, this reminder here, I didn't put a subject, so it just says reminder. If you click it, it will open it up. This is where I didn't put a description when I saved it. So it's just a blank description, but you can enter any details in here and put a date to notify on or after. So that way it will show up here to remind you. And I put this date in the past, so it would show up on my screen. If it's in the future, it's not going to bug you. I'll show you in a moment how to set a new reminder. The others that have more information here were reminders that were created from a transaction. In this case, the reminder was created from this project, a project I called Another One. So you can click that bottom part and open straight to the project that reminder's on, or I can click the top part to open the reminder that's tied to that. So again, this is a reminder created from a specific transaction or project, and these 2 here are reminders that were created outside of a transaction or project. They're generic reminders. Could be a reminder to remind you to pick up the kids, who knows, whatever you need. To create a reminder is right here on this, the icon right here, or under File, New Reminder. You can also do, I think it's Control R for a Windows machine. I'm on a Mac machine, so it's got the special Mac key. And what that does is when you click either of those, it creates a blank reminder, and that's where you'll put the description. So it'll be the short subject that goes on the reminder listing. The details are listed here. You can set your date that you want to show. I'm going to put this one just to the 31st for purposes. I'm going to call it test. Again, the description is the short one that'll show up there, and this is where you want to put any lengthy details. Right now it's set to remind me, so it says reminder for Derek, and there's the notify me, but I could select everybody in my work group, specific users, or everyone. Say it's a reminder for a party this Friday. You could say all, and everybody will get that same pop-up. If you do select users, when you click OK, it will then give you a list of the users in the database. You can use the common technique of select the first one and then shift and click a section to include a contiguous section, or you can use the control click to pick specific ones on there as you need. And when you click OK, that reminder will go to all those. So that's the reminder section. Today's agenda pulls from the calendar. I've entered an item on the calendar for today, which is this training. You'll see it on the calendar in a minute, but right there, it's just now pulling up, so I can now open that event. I didn't put any details on it. I just called it meeting, but you could hypothetically have webinar, and then here you could have the connectivity details. You can even assign people to it, resources, and put attachments to a event if you need to, maybe an agenda or anything in the attachments. I'm going to not go to transmitted orders in a second. I'm just going to pop over here to new messages. This is going to slowly go away. We attempted to replicate a inbox type function, and that's disabled. And this is residual item that would show that. There are a few users that do use the inbox system, and so they could see those messages there. Coming back over here to the orders, because it's the welcome screen, it's trying to highlight things that you maybe need to work on today. I've set myself up as an order CSR, so it's trying to list any non-transmitted or change orders that are in the system. So I've got these two that are right now non-transmitted, so it's just giving myself a to-do list to make sure I transmit these. Doesn't mean they've been transmitted to the manufacturer or not. It just means Oasis doesn't think it's been transmitted to the factory. So you want to make sure that Oasis is set such, like when you print a transaction, it will then show it as transmitted, or if you email it, it'll show as transmitted. If you save it as a draft and send it as a draft on your own on the side, Oasis may still think it's non-transmitted. So keep in mind, this is Oasis thinking it is not transmitted. Any of these hyperlinks you can click to open up that specific transaction. Going up here to the right, return to manufacturers and samples to return. These are the two sample section. I've got a sample out there called 987654321. I have it set in our inventory with a return date of August 6th to the manufacturer. Of course, I got it received as August 1st, so hopefully the manufacturer will give you more than 5 days to return it. But it's basically trying to highlight to me, hey, you need to get this back to the manufacturer. Oh, by the way, that sample is checked out and not expected back the way I have it set till August 12th, which again is in the past. So I'm overdue the manufacturer, and whoever I've left the sample with is overdue to get it back to me, or that it's in the back of that salesman's car and you need to knock him on the head to get him to pull it out of the trunk and bring it inside. I've got another transaction, or I'm sorry, another sample here, just so you can see how it lists more than one. I've created manufacturers in this database, one called Commission and Resell, so that's the manufacturer name. It might be confusing. This is not trying to say it's a Commission and Resell sample. For the purpose of this training, I created a manufacturer called Commission and Resell, and a manufacturer called Commission Only to help us for later training when we're doing the transactions that may be resell, resell only, commission, and resell. So don't let that confuse you. It's not telling you the type of sample. So those are the items that can show. Again, you may or may not see all of them. This yellow here is to highlight that you have something. Any of these that are yellow, it's trying to pull your eyes to it. And what's driving the yellows is the non-transmitted order, and the late samples is trying to highlight this as needs action. Next tab is bid board. Bid board allows you to have a quick summary of the projects that you're bidding on. You can kind of control, it doesn't have to be ones you're bidding on. It's really just looking for a checkbox on the project. But if you use projects the way Oasis was designed, this would hypothetically be all the bid boards that you're currently trying to bid on and win. I'll show you that the setting in a second here. So the first thing you'll notice that is color coded based on ranking guide over here on the right. So I use 3 different ranks for these 3 projects, and they're based on these settings over here. These settings are adjustable per each of your databases. Some of the names I already see in the training I know I've been in the training or seen screen shares. They've already adjusted these to work for what they need. So it is completely adjustable. If you need to adjust that, we do have a user guide, or you can just give us a call or send us an email and we'll show you how to adjust this so it's more applicable to your specific needs. In this case, the default settings are just listing scale of opportunity. And so I've set those projects to that. It also lists locations. This is the a summary of the locations that are on the projects. So right now I've got a project in Cabot, Beebe, and Little Rock. If I had maybe Little Rock, but I didn't put a space in here, I had Little with no space rock, and then others with little space rock, it's going to show the differences here. It's literally just summarizing, or I'm sorry, not summarizing, gathering all the distinct locations that are listed here. So if I click one of those locations, it'll bring down the bid board to just those locations. So if you have a giant bid board and you want to focus on a certain location, that allows you to summarize it. I'm going to click to open this project to show you a couple of things. Again, we'll go over projects at a later one, but specifically what shows it on this bid board is this checkbox here. And depending on your settings, at a certain point on or after this bid date, it will automatically uncheck that. Again, depending on your settings, some people have it where it's manually unchecked. Some people have it where it's automatically unchecked. But it's basically, you know, if Oasis is allowed to run automatically, based on your settings, eventually this will uncheck and fall off your bid board. But anytime this is checked, it will show up here. The opportunity, this ranking guide, is listed here. Again, you can change those, but whatever you set for the project is what will be there. In this case, it's a routine opportunity. Routine opportunity is green, so it's colored a green project. The location is right here. Location Little Rock, Arkansas is summarized there, and then again over here. Some settings for this page. On all these pages, the settings are under File Preferences. So you go to File Preferences. In this case, the bid board settings are right here. I can either show the bid board or uncheck it if I don't want to show it. I can sort by bid date or by quote number. So it'll go in order quote number, or if I click sort by bid date, it'll sort by the bid date. If I click show bid board locations, it'll show this section over here. I'm going to uncheck it to show you what that looks like with it off. I can also do entire bid board, just the bids in my work group, or the bids assigned to me. So I turned off this location. So when I refresh the screen, I click bid board to refresh. I could have done F5 or that location section went away. So that's the bid board. Recent items is a section in Oasis that just gives you the last certain number of items that for various transactions. I've turned them all on so you can see what's possible. In this case, I've got 3 recent projects and it gives you a count. If there's only one, it won't give you a count. Recent orders, 9, invoices, payments, and shipments. All these are linkable, so you click that and it'll open up that transaction. And it's just the last ones that I've went in and hit save and close on. File preferences allows you to set the settings for this. I've got it set right here in this top left corner to show the last 20 of everything. So if you're an orders person, you might turn off projects, quotes, submittals. If you're a project person or a quoter, you might turn off picks and payments and invoices. You know, you might not need to see those. So you can set these as you need and set the number as you need. Keep in mind that if you have a slow connection to your database, maybe you're a remote user, wireless user, or a cloud hosted database, if this number is large, when you click on bid board, it may take a moment for the bid board to fill up. I'm sorry, not bid board, recent items. When you click on recent items, it'll take it a little bit to fill up because it's got to go query all the information and then display it. So keep in mind that if that that page is slow because you're on a wireless connection, you can lower this number so it doesn't try to load too many items. Events is just like over here, today's agenda. It's just showing that's today's agenda on the welcome screen. Well, it's the same thing here, today's agenda on events. It'll list those. So if I had multiple items today, it would list all those items. Problem POs. Oh, by the way, it's yellow because this event is today. So problem POs, it was yellow because I created a problem PO. What is a problem PO? It depends on how you want to use it. What I train when I train people is I tell you a problem PO is any PO that something is going wrong that your boss is going to get called over. That's a problem PO. You want to highlight it. You want to get it resolved so that way nobody gets so angry that they want to elevate a situation. You're going to use your own criteria for what a problem PO is. And I'll just quickly show you how to create a problem PO. I'm skipping over how to create an order because that's another section. But if you've got an order, in this case, this one right here, it's a commission only order for my favorite customer. I went in on the problems tab, which is colored red because I've entered in problems. And then I clicked new problem and added these individual problems. I'm going to zoom it a little bit so you can, actually, I don't know if I can zoom that. Doesn't look like I can. So I don't know if you can see that. I don't know how it's translating across the thing, but basically I created a problem on August 7th saying I was talking to Captain James Kirk at my favorite customer and listed this is a new problem that needs to be sorted out. Then I created another problem talking with the manufacturer. Once you have a problem, it's going to show up on, it's going to color this red. It's going to show red on the listing for the PO. It's going to highlight this yellow and list it there. Once all these are resolved, it's going to remove it from this. And if that's the last problem PO, this yellow will go away. Follow jobs. These are jobs that my user account on this database has been set to follow. I'm following 2 of them. My first project in Cabot, I'm needing to work with my favorite customer to check on colors and temps. And another one, a project named another one, is I need to do something with my favorite customer. How I set this up, and again, those color codes are the same color codes that are from the welcome screen. Is in a project, we'll go over the details of our project later, but on the follow-ups tab and customer tips, I added here, followed by me, to check on colors and temps. I can also follow up somebody else and then allow them to get the follow up on their screen. So you can assign that to somebody else to follow up. It doesn't have to be you. But any that's assigned to me with a text, it's going to list that here, a link to the project and the text that was entered right here. Weekly totals, excuse me, weekly totals is for orders. It's listing the order totals this week based on entry date of the order. If you go under File Preferences on the top right side, this checkbox must be checked in order for it to show. So if you go to weekly totals and nothing's there and you know you have orders entered that week, you'll want to make sure this is checked. What's good about this is you can set up a variety of columns. Right now I've got it set for CSR. I'm listed as a CSR for the order and the customer. It's using the customer ID. My favorite customer, I use the ID of my fave, and second favorite customer, I use the ID of 2ND. So keep in mind, this is the ID of the customer to allow you to save room because a customer's name could be long and it's trying to save space for if you have a lot of columns and rows. Just kind of give you an idea of a different. Let's do manufacturer by, I don't know. I can't remember if I set those orders to different type statuses, but we'll see. So I hit OK. It doesn't refresh again until I either hit refresh F5 or reselect another thing. And yep, I do have 2 statuses. I've got an order status of new, and an order status of invoiced. The manufacturer was my commission and resale manufacturer and my resale only manufacturer, and it's given the totals that are appropriate for it. One thing that I forgot to mention when I was doing the top is this bar over here. This is showing my memory that's available. So if you're running Oasis and things get locked up and it kind of crashes, you could be finding that you're running out of the memory, not memory for your computer, memory that's allocated to Oasis. In this case, I'm running my Oasis in 2G mode. I'm sorry, 1G, let me hover over it. 2G mode, which is 2,000 megabytes. So it's telling me that I got 99% memory available to give it as a fuel tank. So when it gets empty, you're out of memory. You can hover over it to see how much specific memory is free. This may be a place that when you're on a remote or a call with support, we may have you go up here and tell us what's up there. Again, don't forget this help button. It takes you to the user screen, or I'm sorry, the user guide that's applicable to the page you're on. This right here isn't available on the home screen because we have a search function at the bottom that I'm about to go over, but on the other areas, if you click this, it hides or displays your home screen. For the search functions down here towards the bottom, I've got job, PO number, company, first and last, and it's available on any screen, any of these screens, it stays down there. So if I need to search for a job, let's say the job is, I'm going to use the word another because I have a job called another one. It's now going to list quotes and orders that have that as the job name. If I need to look for a specific quote number, I can enter the pound sign, tic-tac-toe symbol, hashtag, whatever you prefer to call it, and enter the quote number. Since I only have a few quotes, my numbers are very low. Your numbers will obviously be higher than that. So I'm going to use quote number 5, and it's now listing the quotes and orders tied to quote number 5. Same for POs. If I know the PO number, in this case, I got a couple that I've entered as test. I'll click enter test, and it's showing me both test 1 and test space 2. For companies, I'm going to type in fave for my for a company because it's my favorite customer. In this case, it found my fave for the customer. That's the ID of my favorite customer, and it lists the contact information, Captain James T. Kirk. You can tell I'm the Star Trek geek. I can do my name, so I'm going to go James, and it will. Well, I guess let me get you another listing so you can see the actual change. Okay, now I'm going to go back to remove that, do James, and that shows you just listing the contacts that are associated with that. If I had a James at multiple locations with different last names, if I search this way, it's going to list all the James. I'm hitting enter after I type in the field, but you can also click the find if you'd rather not hit enter. Over here on the right, I have this thing on the right is to quickly search a cut sheet. I've inserted one cut sheet into my database, so I got to make sure I use the right one. I think it's commissioned only. So I've selected the manufacturer commissioned only, and the part is 1234. And it will go look for in the database and pull the cut sheet associated with that manufacturer and part catalog number. I don't have any others in there, so I can't give you a variety search, but you got to be specific. You got to list the manufacturer and put in the part number, and I've got it saved as catalog number 1234, so it pulls in a cut sheet. So if you're on the phone with somebody and you need to quickly get a cut sheet out to them, you can use this to pull it up, save it, send it to them in an email if you don't want to go through the manufacturer section to search for it. We have 5 minutes before we get into the questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and press on to do the calendar. We got enough time. So the calendar section is this third button down. Right now I've got it set to show a month. Your view might be different depending on how you got it set. All the X dates are dates in the past, so your eye can quickly go to what's the current date. It's not, it's the blue is not the current date, it is the current selected date. So you can see if I'm selecting this date, it's showing the current date as a red number. So X's are in the past, red number is today, no X's, and black is in the future. You can see there's a variety of things. I got my reminders, some of them were on the home screen. I've got some projects, and I've got some POs. These projects are color coded based on the same information here. Go back to the bid board, the ranking guide. So whatever color code you use there is the color code that these quotes will show up. There, there, and there. The orders are listed as, looks like a kind of like a muted yellow or a brown, are listed as an order. If it's a problem, I'm sorry, if it's a non-transmitted order, it's going to look like this bright yellow. And if it is a change order, I believe it will show the changes that are on that. I just didn't do a change order I don't see one of them as a change order. Okay, so if you have more items that are listed on here, if you select a day, it's going to give you this little section right here. So you can see that I have 5 items, but there's a little bit of a green down there. So the 6th item was starting to show. When I select it, it puts them all here. So if you have a giant list of items that are on that day, it's going to list them all, and this will turn into a scrollable list if it does go off the screen. Any of these you click, it's going to open the item. So it's, in this case, I'm going to show the reminder. This is a task. I want to see the reminder, or if I want to see the transaction that reminder is tied to. Here's a meeting. There's no transaction, so it doesn't give me the option. It just pulls up the meeting. Here's a project, so it's just going to take me straight to the project, and an order. If I click an order, it'll take me straight to the order. This screen, just like on the recent items, could take a little bit to load depending on how you have it set. It's got to query the database to get a month's worth of information. So if you're in a slower connection to your database, you may not want to show a full month. Your other options are work month, which if you don't do anything on the weekends, it just gets rid of Saturday, Sunday. Don't use this though if you have things that they're going to bid on a weekend, because it's now going to hide those items. You can do a full week. I can do a work week, which gets rid of Saturday, Sunday, or I can go to a day, which will just list that specific day. So if you have this set to a smaller setting, when you first get to the calendar, it'll load quicker, and then you can expand up if you need to. The other way you can expand is limiting the number of quotes, orders, events, and reminders that are going to display. In this case, I'm just showing the ones for Derek. I could say me only, or I can specific a different user, or I can say none and say show me no events. Same for reminders. Myself, select a specific name that's in the database, and none. Obviously, me only and Derek are actually the same entry. It's just listing all the users after the me only and none. For quotes, it adds a couple more items. It's me only, those in my work group, all, or I can select a specific work group. In this case, TRTY, short for territory, is the default work group. So if I had more than one work group, it would list all those and I could select just the items that are in that. Same for orders, I can do the same thing. The show RA dates is request for approval dates. I don't think I have any entered, so it would show the request for approval dates if I had that turned on. This is what I was talking about earlier on the home screen. It can hide or show the search bar on the right. You have the same buttons up at the top like you do on the home screen, and you have a new items here called resources and configuration. I'm going to go under configuration first. This allows you to set various resources if you want to assign resources to a meeting. For example, a specific room in your company or anything like that, or I need, for this meeting, I need to use this certain sample. You can set up various kinds, and I can set up a variety of resources in that I have multiple calendars. So if in this case, I've got the company calendar, I can add a different kind of resource called a room, call it break room, room, break room. There we go. I must say it cancel. So it'll add that on there. Those allow you, when you schedule an event against one of those, let me turn events on, allows you to select them here. People are the users in your database, resources are the ones that you set up. And as you add them to it, it'll show up on their respective calendar. So in this case, I've added this meeting to the company calendar, it shows there. If I've also added it to the break room, it'll show, well, maybe not, maybe I got to save and close. Resources. There we go. I just didn't save it. It'll show it there. That setting is what goes back here for the company calendar, which is the default one. So scanning real quick, we got, those are the same. Yep, I think we covered it all. So I'm now going to move over to see if there's any questions. We got the one about will the copy of the training be available online? That it will be. We're going to post this up here. I see Nancy has, oh, Janelle's asking me, Let me find her. There. She's asking them. There we go. Go ahead, Janelle.
Yeah, we had one with Nancy where do the users enter the information that would show up on the Office phone book from the home screen?
Yes. Okay, so Nancy's talking about this right here, the Office phone numbers. Where do I enter the information that shows up here? You'll go down here to configuration, and you have to be an Oasis admin to do this. Configuration, users. I've only got 2 users, so I'm going to go into mine. Under contact information, over here, I entered in an email and a phone number. If I put in I'm going to just put in a fax. Got a fax number in there just to add something new. So what you put in here is where that's going to show. Right now it's asking me because I turned on an O4 function, so it's asking me to activate a license just because this is the first time saving and closing this one. So I'm going to hit activate just to get past that. And go back to Office phone numbers. And there's my fax number.
Okay. Another question I had is how do we lock the settings so everyone is working from the same template for quotes?
Okay, that is a good question. I believe yeah. Do you have a lot more questions? Just because I want to save any questions for the home screen first, because that goes in another area.
Okay, we can hold on that one. Anyone have any other questions for the home screen? Because at the moment we only had one about the contact information.
All right, so we'll go. I believe if I understand the question, when you're in projects and you want to have, they're older. There we go. You want to have this. Janelle, do you believe she's talking about these or these settings?
So the person that asked it, yeah, the lock in the template, which is the column settings.
Gotcha. All right. All right. So let's say you're in Oasis or in projects, and you have somebody that's working on a project and somebody else working on a project, and they have different sets of columns. And person A enters something in a column that person B doesn't see, and that messes up that piece of knowledge being missing, forces that person to kind of mess up and accidentally send a quote out with wrong information because that column was hitting. So it's a common problem that Janelle's referring to, and the person asking the question is, if you want to lock everybody down to specific columns that the company wants to use, that way everybody's on the same sheet of music. So first you'll want to choose the columns that are part of your view. So in this case, I've got these columns available. If I, or I'm sorry, turned on. If I click File, Preferences, it's going to list the ones I have turned on as well as all the ones I have turned off. So the first thing you're going to want to do is choose the ones you want. I'm going to turn off. Let me just find one. I'm going to turn off manufacturer target, manufacturer quote, and I'm going to add, for the purposes of this training, I'm going to add level 2 and level 3. So now I've chosen the ones that I want. I can also move them up and down. So let's say I want level 2 to be up here by level 1. And I'm not going to go through and move level 3, but let's say you could move level 3 up there. Once you have it set the way you want, you can click OK, and it now sets the columns the way you want them. Or I'm sorry, it turns on or off the columns the way you want it. You can also adjust the size of the columns. So this one right here, O-base, is kind of cut off a little bit. So I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to adjust the manufacturer, this one, and this one. Whenever I change columns, if I hit File, Preferences, OK, it resaves it and includes the column width. So you go through that process and save, you get it set the way you want. Now you can go in and save this layout the way you want it to be. So in this case, I'm going to call it main layout, for lack of a better word, but you can call this anything. You could create a layout for quoters, submittals, crossovers, various functions, or you can have one main layout that's for all of them. And now I can save that layout, and now it's available under here. So if for some reason somebody went along and turned off a column that's important, I'm going to turn off quantity, hit save and close. I'm going to go back into it. It's gone. But now when I set that layout, it's going to go to a common layout. Janelle, you got anything you want to add to that?
You just showed the layouts. So the other way, if you truly wanted to lock it down, there is a global setting to lock it down to where then only people they would only be able to use the layouts to change their settings, because they would no longer, in a general sense, no one but admins would be able to access the file menu and preferences function. And that's the way to truly lock it down. But if you can get your people to use the layouts, the layout function is the best way. You have some generic layouts set up and flip back through those, because you're going to run into different scenarios that you need some more columns for. So, but if you truly want to lock your people out of the ability to change the columns, that global setting that he's showing there is the way to do that. You would need, after changing that, everyone needs to restart Oasis.
And how I got there is, like she said, an Oasis admin would go to Configuration, Software, click on Settings under Global Preferences, General tab, and it's this one right here. So now nobody, once you get the columns the way you want it, like Janelle said, they can't change that unless they're an admin. What else we got? Let's see. I see.
So Angela said that she enjoyed this. When will there be another one?
Well, to give you a little bit of history, COVID and pandemic and all that, obviously online training has been the bread and butter. On-site training, both coming here and going to your locations, have kind of been on hold. Eventually, we're starting to reach out and do some of those depending on the state requirements for that, but it's still not enough to satisfy, especially a people that have hired a new set of people and need some from beginning to end training, and a 1 hour training session doesn't cover it, or a new purchaser of Oasis needs that initial training. So we've been trying to come up with ways to do more and more online venues. We have done online training fully virtually to test that out, and this is the other idea, the webinar, where we pick a subject and slowly walk through subject by subject the entire Oasis, get the opportunity for your questions, which is important, which is an important variable than just recording a video. It allows those questions to occur because you ask a question that somebody else wants to know, they're going to hear that answer. Whereas if we do just a plain video, it doesn't necessarily, we may not catch all those questions. So we wanted to capture that. So this was the first one to try it out. And so far we've been happy with it, and it works out. So we're going to begin to schedule more. I can't promise when, but we're going to, on the newsletter, start getting the timing out and what the subject is. So then you can start to schedule any refresher training or new training for that subject as needed. And as we go through them all and record them, those videos will be available on demand as well. So I can't answer when, but because of the success of today, I think it's going to be soon, because it's we got to change the way we do things. We all are changing the way we do things, and this is one of the solutions we're trying to move forward with. So very good question.
Right. That's all the questions that we've had. I think we have time for one more question.
And let me turn off, if anybody has any that they want to announce, let me know, and we can unmute you if it's easier to say it than type, because we just muted everybody for the purposes of the training, but we have open time here at the end if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question. We can definitely do that. Of course, you'll be recorded.
Do appreciate everyone being here.
Yes.
With that, and please feel free to give us your feedback. If there was any issues with you coming into the meeting, or audio or video issues, please let us know. Since this is our first one, we definitely want to learn and make it better for the next time.
All right. I'm going to hang out a little bit longer, so as people drop out, if it gets down to a smaller pool, if anybody needs to discuss anything, I'm going to stay here, but we're done if people want to leave. Looks like Angela didn't get the link. Okay, so we need to double check. Kristen, yes, this was recorded, and we're going to send out a email to everybody that was invited with a link to it to go there. Sandra also didn't get a link, so we'll have to look into that.
Okay, that makes all right. So we'll find that out, because we had about 70 people sign up and about 30 in attendance.
Yeah.
Really great feedback. Thank you, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Add to Outlook calendar, that might help. Okay, excellent.
Okay, so not like an iCalendar invite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, we're down to the last 5.
Yes.
Derek, do you want to stop the recording and see if anyone wants to speak candidly?
Yes. Let's see. Stop recording.